You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, welcome to the Middle Age Movie Reviews Podcast. Three guys saying it comes down to a simple choice. Get busy listening or get busy dying. My name is Tim, and my podcasting partners are...
Matt.
Joey.
And joining us this evening, a man who understands the value of a cigarette. From the MCU's Bleeding Edge YouTube channel, it's True Knowledge himself, Jeff. Say hello, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Also joining us tonight, a man who is no stranger to doing hard time. From the Andreas, the pop culture guy, and the MCU's Bleeding Edge YouTube channels, it's Andreas. Say hello, Andreas.
Hello, everyone. If you want America to be better, vote for my wife, Angela Bassett, for the President of the United States 2024. Please vote now for Angela Bassett for the President of the United States of 2024. But hello, everyone. I'm happy to be back with you guys.
Oh, Andre got his groove back. I don't know. What's that 911 show she's on now?
Yes, 911. You can call her in that number.
Well, all right. Joey, why don't you tell us what is playing in the prison day room tonight?
Tonight, we are watching the 1994 movie The Shawshank Redemption, number 920 from the book of 1001 Movies You Should Watch Before You Die. Written by Stephen King and Frank Darabont. Directed by Frank Darabont and starring Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, and Bob Gunton. Who the fuck's Bob Gunton? The warden?
The warden.
Warden.
Did he just die?
I do not know, but let's go look real quick.
He's alive.
He is alive. Alive and kicking. He's alive at 78 and kicking.
Demolition Man.
Oh,
yes, nice. Yeah.
He was in that. Yeah.
Wasn't he a warden in that too?
The mayor.
Oh, okay.
I think he was the former warden.
No. He was a police captain. He was like a commissioner for the future.
Okay.
Right. The militiaman.
So we've just been Andre-pedia'd?
Yeah, I think so.
Hell yeah.
Cyber's got a challenger to the throne here.
Well, I tell you what, Andres, you get the first point for tonight.
Oh, yes. Right out the gate. Look
right
at that.
off the gate.
Oh, I'm kicking.
Joey's got -1 for calling a guy dead who's still alive.
All right. Well, thanks, Joey, for pointing out the non-dead guy. And I got to ask, guys, when was the first time that you watched all the way through, start to finish, The Shawshank Redemption? And I'm going to start with you first, Jeff S., a.k.a. True Knowledge. When was the first time you saw Shawshank Redemption?
The year that it came out on HBO, and I could watch it, on TV or whatever. I watched it with my parents, I think, with my family, with my dad or whatever. And then I also watched it several times when it was just a movie that lived on HBO for a long time, So I watched it. What year did the movie come out?
94.
94. So yeah, I saw it in 95, probably. I'd say. And
also when it hit VHS, yes.
Yeah, it was like when it got to its rental stage, I think I probably saw it. So like, I saw it when I was developmentally probably like 12.
Oh wow!
So it was a big cornerstone movie for me in terms of it being a classic depressing film. It was sad. It was a sad movie. It's a lot to handle. It's a lot to deal with when you're young. So for me, it's like a personal classic.
Gotcha. Well, how about you, Andres? When was the first time you saw Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah. Jeff kind of hit it the nail for me. It's like it's this like annual TV thing that you catch on. My family saw it. It was either TNT or HBO. Ever since, it's been an annually watch for me. It's one of the greatest films ever, and it's just this one of the best prison movies ever. Depicting that to life, and it's one of my personal favorite Stephen King adaptations. It's one of the best adaptation to a short story, really. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that.
All right, that seems rather interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people seen it on VHS first or HBO. How about you, Joey? When was the first time you saw it?
I have a feeling I may have seen it at the theater Like, I think it maybe got another run at the theater once it got nominated for awards. But I can't, without going through a really, really old movie stubs, I can't confirm that. I may have seen it on VHS for the first time, but I've been a fan of the movie since it was new. It's great, and I was 15 when this came out. So yeah, I would have probably not had any problems going to the theater to see it. I would have still had to gotten a ride. We probably would have sat in the front away from, my friend's mom.
Gotcha. Okay, Tim, as our resident Stephen King buff, when was the first time you watched Shawshank Redemption?
So I read the book first, as usual. As we know, I'm a consummate reader of the Stephen King, all things Stephen King. I read it actually in this edition right here, back in the late 80s. It has 3 of my favorite non-horror Stephen King stories in it. It's basically a book of short stories, but it only has 4 because they're kind of, I would say, mid-range stories rather than just short stories. And I was at the theater front and center when it came out because it's like, again, one of my 3 favorite non-horror, probably one of my, I should say 4 non-horror-esque Stephen King books. So I was front and center in '94 at the theater.
Nice. Well, I'm the odd man out then because I have never watched this movie start to finish, nuts and bolts. This is actually the first time that I got to watch this movie, and I watched it Saturday night preparing for this podcast. So I gotta say, I've got some interesting thoughts on the movie. Now, mind you, I have seen like little snippets here and there, like because from TikTok videos and stuff. But yeah, the straight through first time was this Saturday. So,
all right, excited to hear your take.
Well, that brings us to our favorite part of the show, the part where Tim, our resident puppeteer, decides to tell me what he wants me to read the synopsis as. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tim. What am I doing tonight?
All right, Matt. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I just want you to read the synopsis as a prison warden, drunk on his own power as he addresses a new batch of prisoners.
Really? You're not having him do a Morgan Freeman voiceover?
You know what?
It's like, did you just completely miss the point?
No, I mean, come on, let's face it. Nobody can match Morgan Freeman. So I'm like, it's not even fair.
I can do an okay one.
Okay, then Joey.
I can do the cadence.
Let's bring up the synopsis. Joey, I would like you to read the synopsis instead of Matt this evening as a voiceover as Morgan Freeman.
Andy Dufresne is sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in prison for the murders of his wife and her lover, and is sentenced to a tough prison, Shawshank. However, only Andy knows he didn't commit the crimes. While there, he forms a friendship with me, Red, a white Irish guy in the book. And he experiences the brutalities of prison life, the sisters. Adapts to life on the inside and life being inside himself. Gives financial advice to the guards, builds a library, and helps the warden, all in 19 years. Suddenly I turned into a different person. Visa. It's everywhere you want to be.
Joey, very well done. Very well done.
Very nice, Joey. Very nice.
There's people who've done it better. But I would say this movie, because he is the narrator, gave him his voiceover career. I think he's made millions and millions more dollars doing commercials because of this movie.
It absolutely is. He even says that this is basically what springboarded him into, voiceover work as another avenue of his career.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what, gentlemen? That was actually one of my early questions. And Joey did a fantastic job on that little intro. So right off the bat, I'm going to give Joey 5 points.
Wow.
3 for the synopsis, great impersonation, and 2 for already cutting me off on my question. All right, guys. Joey has 5 electoral votes. Andres has 1 electoral vote. Tim and Jeff, the stakes are high.
Coming up dry. I think we should explain that we are recording this on election night, so everybody understands, why we're doing it that way.
Yes. Tonight is
little context would be nice, I think, for the listener.
Yeah. So even though you'll be listening to this in the middle of November, right now it's November the 5th. So let's dive into our film. In 1947, Portland, Maine banker Andy Dufresne is tried and found guilty for murdering his wife and her lover. Andy is sent to Shawshank State Prison to serve 2 consecutive life sentences for their murders. He is befriended by Ellis Red Redding, a contraband smuggler serving a life sentence. Red procures a rock hammer for Andy per his request. Andy is also assigned to work in the prison laundry, where he is frequently accosted by the sisters' prison gang and their leader, Boggs Diamond. All right, gentlemen, there's a lot to unpack in that opening sequence. So what I'd like to know is, what did you guys think of the whole trial sequence? And I'm going to turn it over to you first, Tim. Did you think that the director gave you a sense that Andy could have been the murderer of his wife and her lover?
Yeah, I think the way he shoots the beginning of the film, I mean, you see him sitting outside the house, he's drinking, he's got the gun in his lap. I mean, without actually seeing anything happen, the setup's there. So when you see him in the trial, you're not sure. I mean, and Tim Robbins has such a cadence, like it's just his personality, like the way he presents himself. He has that like they talk about in the movie, he's just a guy that's just kind of shuffling along, like he's got exactly nowhere to go, but he knows who he is and what he's about, kind of thing. That's how Tim Robbins presents himself and everything he does, and he does it lends really well to this character. And that court scene where that prosecutor keeps trying to dig at him and get a reaction, and he's just answering the questions like very calmly. He's like, well, I find it very convenient that you don't know where your gun's at. He's like, well, I find it very inconvenient that you were unable to find the gun. It's just really monotone, no highs, no lows, so but it goes against him in the end, because that judge looks at him and says, I have never met such a cold human being in my life, and I am happy to hand down this sentencing of 2 life, sentences to you, 1 for each victim. So you think it would do him well to not, get excited when he's getting hammered, but by showing no emotion, he actually kind of does himself in the long run. So it was very well done, very well played.
Awesome. Well, how about you, Jeff? What are your thoughts on the whole intro, the trial sequence, and Andy Dufresne's, or Tim Robbins' performance as Andy Dufresne?
Well, it all happens really quickly, and seeing Tim Robbins in what is for him like a youthful performance, probably, even though this was his breakout role, it says a lot about him. He's a great actor. You never really saw him do anything besides Shawshank Redemption, where he was like a key player in a film that much, always more of like an ensemble effort whenever you'd see him attached to anything. I think the relationship between him and Morgan Freeman on screen is really palpable from start. The sisterhood bullshit or whatever with like the rapists. I remember being a kid and thinking about how scary that all was, about like how scary prison would be, because like imagine having to fucking like fight to like not get raped, on the daily. You know what I'm saying? Like that's pretty hardcore, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, Andres, what about you? What did you think of the relationship that got built between Red and Andy Dufresne?
I mean, that's the heart of the movie, really. These two, unlikely, prisoners becoming good friends, and the one teaches the other about hope, and hope is not a bad thing, and that's something that can carry you on in your life. And where Red helped Andy a lot in terms of getting his projects off the ground. You think about it, he's the one that helped him get the hammer, which that's the tool to get him out towards the end of the film. We'll get into that. Or stuff like to keep him to have at least a normal thing in his life, doing the rock thing and all that, that's the heart of the film, and I always cherish that. I mean, when it gets to me every time you see that smile in the end of the film with Morgan Freeman, and you see Andy, and then they come together in that beautiful beach, And by the way, Roger Deakins, one of the greatest cinematographer. That shot alone is one of the best endings ever, and it hits me hard to see these two friends get back together and now have a life outside of prison. So yeah, it's the heart of the film, and this is the best performance from Morgan Freeman, and and I disagree, Jeff. A little bit. Tim Robinson, he had some leading roles, but not the iconic one like this one has. He did lead film. One of the Coen Brothers movie was Proxy, Hudson Proxy, or something like that.
Hudsucker Proxy.
Thank you.
I think that comes after this one, doesn't it?
I think I think it's around this year.
Yeah.
I think 1994 or something like that. Even that was not a big critical not like commercial success. It wasn't a commercial.
That's a weird fucking movie. Hudsucker
I know,
Proxy.
but I love it. I'm like, the hula hoop is courageous. If you know what I'm talking about with that film. Anyway, it's the relationship between Red and Andy is a great heart of the film. Plus, I like the expansion from the short story, because the short story of Andy and Red are very different. If you read that short story, like I did in high school.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Andres. So Joey, last question for you. What did you think about Andy's first night in the first few years in the prison there?
A lot of something that rhymes with grapes. And there's wrath. The opening of the film, it does start kind of like a whodunit, or it's like, how did Andy get convicted? And we get to see Jeffrey DeMunn play the district attorney who would show up in all the other Frank Darabont movies. This is the movie where you start seeing like all of Frank Darabont's regulars. William Sadler, Clancy Brown. I don't know if Tim Robbins did any more movies with him. There's a guard that's the dude from RoboCop who gets turned into toxic waste is in this. There's a lot of recognizable faces, and they're all great actors. There's very few bumps on a log in this movie. So right from the beginning, we see that like Red's narrating that this man is the person he thinks is going to crack that night, and William Sadler ends up being correct. It's Fat Ass cracks, and who in the credits is only called Fat Ass, by the way. And then we're introduced to Clancy Brown, Captain Hadley, who beats him to death. But we find out the next day it was because the doctor went home that night, and the dude just sat there until the doctor came on shift the next morning, and then there was nothing they could do for Fat Ass. So it's rough, but and I don't think somebody got beat to death every time they brought in prisoners, but clearly that's Andy Dufresne's introduction to Shawshank Prison, and it's dark.
I think prison was much harder then too, because let's face it, this is a maximum security prison with probably the worst of the worst. So it's a place where people go to die, and should they die of natural old age or just a good beating, nobody gives a crap.
Yeah, I'm sure he had to fill out paperwork.
Yeah.
He might have had to answer some questions, but there was no investigation.
I'm pretty sure guys fell down the stairs or over the railings by accident all the time there.
Fell off a roof.
Tried to escape. Yeah. A lot of escapes, probably.
Which we'll probably get to something about that later when we learn about Tommy.
Yeah, and nowadays they have commissary. They can buy your relatives, or God knows who, can put money in your commissary, and you could go like buy snacks and stuff.
Yeah, actually,
this is pre-snacks prison.
Commissary is how you live in fucking jail. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have commissary, like, I can't even imagine they're like prison back then. Because like nowadays, like without commissary, you're fucked in jail. Like seriously, the food is bad in jail.
Well, and what I enjoyed about that too in this movie is that they really only talk about cigarettes being kind of like, that's the coin of choice, right? But in the book, they also cover how people smuggled in money in their prison wallet.
Ew.
Anybody want to guess what your prison wallet is?
We all know.
Okay.
It's called keystring.
Yeah, they had to stick it way the hell up there, so when they got searched, nobody would find it, and they would come in with a roll of cash, and so they would also pay with things with cash or with cigarettes. That was you either had real hard currency or you had cigarette currency. If you didn't have either one of those, you weren't getting squat in prison back then. So
and your boy Jamal had that dirty money, that dirty brown money.
Yeah.
Old friend of mine from college did just shy of a year. He had to do it in a county jail, and there was guys who had been to prison and were, they were in county waiting for the trial to be completed and everything, and they're like, I can't wait till I get to prison. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, this fucking county jail's the worst. That friend of mine he was overweight, and he lost probably well over 100 pounds. Because there was, that you just get what's on your tray. And then he was used to consuming a lot of calories. And then he said one thing that they would do was, he's like, he'd see guys fish banana peels out of the trash all the time. And they'd dry out the banana peels, and then they would take spicy chili packets from ramen and spread it all over a mess of dried out banana peels and eat them. And there's all kinds of shows, and there's TikToks and YouTube channels showing you like what people make in prison and stuff like that. But that was how I learned about it. And he said they didn't even get like shampoo. I think they had bars of soap, but they didn't get shampoo in county unless you bought it from commissary. And so after I found out he was there, I didn't want to get him in trouble because I knew they could trade things. So I didn't want to give him any ideas. So I put $30 in his commissary every month, and I sent him. I found out that prisoners like to read about the outside world, and so I got him 2 weekly magazines. I got him Time and Entertainment Weekly, and when he was done reading them, everybody would pass them around because they want to see what's going on in the world. I think it was the year all the celebrities started dying, like Prince and stuff. So like they'd be reading about that every week. They'd say, "Oh, who the fuck died?"
I don't want to turn this into a big let's talk about jail conversation. But I've experienced that hardcore make a meal out of the commissary shit, like mixed up into like the jail, the jail buffet or whatever, for everybody. And it's intense. I didn't eat it. The shit they made, like the cake they made or whatever, out of like ramen powders and potato chips broken up into pieces and shit, like all kinds of shit or whatever, and all mixed up into one cake or whatever, I didn't eat it. But you had to participate in it. Like everybody has to pitch in on it. You know what I'm saying? Like Joey said, some prison dude, some lifer type dude or whatever comes around, with is like, hey, will you put down for the fucking, the whatever the fuck it's called?
Yeah, they don't care if you're gonna eat it, but it's extreme peer pressure, so you're gonna participate.
Oh yeah, everybody pitches. They go right around and ask you right after the commissary comes in.
That's interesting.
I think there's a whole YouTube channel in this, the Prison Gourmet, and we just reproduce this stuff in it, and then we try to eat it to see how it goes.
The most interesting thing about the magazines, though, was besides the entertainment, they took the staples out, and then they would tear up the pages and burn them, and that the ashes would become ink, and the staples became needles, and they'd give each other prison tats.
Gotcha.
And that made him popular with the other prisoners, so people didn't. Basically, I kept him from getting his ass beat just by sending him magazines.
So
he was special.
You were supplying the library then.
Correct.
In other words,
I see dudes actually use the electrical connection for the water the water jug thing or whatever to create a spark to actually smoke drugs in the jail. You know what I'm saying? Like they were lighting shit up on fire to use the shit that was lit and sparked to smoke their drugs.
High risk, low reward. They could literally burn themselves to death before someone finds out about it.
It was intense.
This is awesome. Pretty interesting jail stuff. I gotta say, we definitely went down a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting.
They have TV too.
So let's take a look at the point value here, guys. I'm going to give a point to Andres for bringing up the Hudsucker Proxy. Joey, you actually brought up a point. I was going to reference RoboCop with a question, but you already filled that in, so there's a point for you. Jeff, because of prison life, I'm going to give you a point as well. Tim, I got nothing, Betty, but you know what? I do have one last question though. All right. What brand is their type of money?
Oh, Lucky Strike.
Yep, there you go. All right, everybody's in the race now. My final thoughts just on Andy Dufresne real quick, and I gotta say I really felt that Andy's lack of emotion at the trial showed how much he was just broken with the murder of his wife, and it also kind of showed that he seemed to be more of a logical person than someone driven by emotional swings. And I did get the feeling that he might have murdered the two victims. You know, the way that they intercut everything, it definitely gave you that idea that maybe he did do it.
He was thinking about it.
Yeah.
But he said he sobered up in the car.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think that the story with Red's narration really helps drive the whole story. I mean, we definitely get less scenes of exposition as the narration kind of gives us the exposition, but not to the point where what we're watching doesn't take it away, if you know what I mean. So, well, that moves us forward into 1949, and Andy overhears the captain of the guards, Byron Hadley, complaining about being taxed on an inheritance and offers to help him shelter the money legally. After the sisters beat Andy to near death, Hadley beats and cripples Boggs, who is subsequently transferred to a minimum security hospital. Andy is not attacked again. Warden Samuel Norton meets Andy and reassigns him to the decrepit prison library to assist elderly inmate Brooks Hatlin, a front to use Andy's financial expertise to manage financial matters for other prison staff and the warden himself. Andy begins writing weekly letters to the state legislature requesting funds to improve the library. All right, so that's a lot to unpack, gentlemen. But first, I'm going to go to Andres, and I'm going to ask you, what did you think, Andres, of the whole scene with Hadley interacting with our hero Andy Dufresne, right up there on top of the prison roof?
Yeah. It just shows, I think, Matt, you brought up the intellectual side of Andy, and this is where he took the moment to really do that. He was very calculated at the moment to hear that, have it, because Red brought up in the narration after that scene is done, that he kind of did it to, be friends with the criminals, and the fact that he did that, to like earn the trust of the inmates, and Red, was a really, bold and, risky decision, but it paid off well. And, by the way, Clancy Brown, great actor. He's doing an awesome job in the Penguin Show. Me and Jeff are reviewing. He's awesome there. Of course, he's Mr. Krabs. I mean,
he's the Kurgan, sir. He's the Kurgan from the Highlander.
No, he's Mr. Krabs, who is the cheap restaurateur that doesn't pay his employees well. Okay,
Is it true, SpongeBob? Is it hilarious?
Exactly.
It's your spatula, boy. We got burgers to be making.
Oh my god. Yeah, and so like him grabbing, Andy in the rooftop is very, very tense. And I mean, come on, like you brought up exposition like that, like it's not exposition, but like all that information could have been boring. But the way Tim Robinson talked was like very intriguing. How to convince, the sport Harley, to like get these like papers and RAS thing to give him that like inheritance money, and he will do it, and it's like it really shows that side of Andy being intellectual, and but also like being efficient and like give the inmates what they wanted. It's just really cool. And but of course it opens eyes to people like the warden to like take advantage of him with this knowledge of like doing this laundry money, you call it. And so I think that's very interesting to see here. And then of course it was great to see him working with Brooks in the library. That was really nice. I mean, come on, if you had to do laundry is like horrible. I mean, I don't know how laundry is in prison, but like, I mean, they look kind of like very frustrating and like bad conditions, right? So I was happy he switched him out there. So that was really cool. Yeah, this whole section was really great. The music, I want to bring up Thomas Newman, great composer. Also his brother Wendy Newman as well. He's also another great composer.
What about his second cousin once over, Randy Newman?
That's what I say, Randy Newman, right? Or he has other brothers. Anyway,
I'm being silly because Randy Newman's the guy that does the Toy Story stuff. Can you imagine him doing?
Yeah.
You got a friend in
me.
You got a cigarette in me.
I think he could do. I think he could do the score here as well. I mean, they're not like so different, you know. But anyway, Thomas Newman's score really elevates that like happy moment when Andy felt he was normal again, despite he's in prison. So I really love that scene. Him like getting the beers is just so cool. It makes me want to have a beer. But I'll just choose a ginger ale over a beer. But yeah,
are you even old enough to have a beer, Andres?
Yeah. I'm 300 years old. I'm a time lord, so I'm not an alcohol man. So I just
you don't look
water.
like a day over 12 though.
He's got a thick beard.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
he's older than
some
21.
people grow beards when they're young.
Yes,
he doesn't smoke cigarettes or drink booze, so he doesn't have those man years on him. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I had this beer since 10 or 10 or 12.
Middle school beer.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, yes, I'm gonna be Tony Stark, but then I became Wolverine. I was like, okay,
be a
that's
substitute teacher. Give your classmates detentions.
Yeah. Oh, I should have done that. That'll be a good prank. Hey guys, guess what? I'm the substitute teacher. I could pull it off. Damn, I missed that prank. Joey, you're a genius, man. That's all I have to say with this. The rooftop is amazing scene. I love it. It's just a whole lot of great scenes in this film.
Gotcha. All right. Well, how about you, Joey? What did you think of the rooftop sequence? Do you think Andy was placating to more of the guards, or was he trying to make friends with the guys? I mean, how does this, from your viewpoint, how does this whole scene work out for you?
I agree with Red. I think he just wanted to feel normal, and this was an opportunity to curry favor and watch the other guys just get to drink some beer. He wasn't drinking anymore because, well, look what the fuck happened last time he got wasted. He got charged with murder. So, I think that's all it was he wanted to use his knowledge to do something productive. And he was always being productive. I mean, look at the rocks and stuff. He's making the chess sets and what have you. He was keeping himself busy. Get busy living or get busy dying, and he almost did both that day. Because what if Clancy didn't let him finish his sentence? He would have been off that roof.
Could have. Well, how about you, Jeff? Do you agree with Andres and Joey?
I mean, everybody's already pretty much talked about the seed. It's very I guess heartwarming, and like in the sea of depressingness that is like the Shawshank Redemption. Moments like this, this part of the film, allow you to kind of breathe a little bit in a positive form, or notion. His whole Andy Dufresne's whole existence and his whole life is like tortured because of like where he lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, being in prison and all that shit. So, I don't think he's currying favor or anything. I think he genuinely, probably is the kind of guy that, likes to give back to like his fellow brothers and shit like that, when he has a chance. That's it.
Gotcha. Well, then let me pivot and ask you this: what did you think of when the warden came in and had his room turned over? What was going through your mind then?
Even as a kid, I understood that was like the warden asserting his authority. You know what I'm saying? Like which in like a prison like that, you probably had to do that. So like I didn't begrudge the warden for that, you know.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let me go ahead and slide over to Tim real quick. So Tim, since you've read the book and you're kind of our resident Stephen King guy, how does the book compare in that whole sequence with Andy Dufresne making friends in the prison and then getting turned over to the warden?
I think if I remember, it's been a quick minute since I've read it. It's been a couple decades. I have not come back and read this one again. But if I remember right, it's pretty close to the book in that, in the way that it's presented in the movie, for sure. I mean, it's a moment where I think everybody says it's him just trying to feel normal. I think it's just him realizing, like, oh my God, this is something I can actually answer. This is what I'm useful and good for. Like, I can actually answer this and I can make this into something, like, so not only does he kind of get to go, look, I know the answer for your problem. It takes a tremendous chance to say it to the, as I say, the hardest screw in the prison system. But he's already got it calculated in his head, because his quick response is, I'd be happy to do that for you if you give each my, my fellow coworkers up here 3 bears. So he already had it kind of playing in his head once he heard the scenario going. So it allows him to show how smart he is, curry favor with them. And maybe even in the back of his head, he's like, maybe this will stop, the weekly visits from the sisters, So,
right.
And I think that's pretty much along the same lines as the way the book presents it for the most part. And then the warden coming in after the fact, because he hears about how smart this guy is, he's having that cell turned because he wants to size him up. Like, is he really as smart as I think he is? And how can I profiteer from this guy that I know is stuck in the prison? So he starts off with I see a little contraband in here, but nothing we really got to worry about. I'm sure we can, work something out. So he's setting the groundwork for what he's going to have him do. And it's pretty much saying, you play ball with me. I'll make sure that you get your one room, at the Hilton here, and we'll turn a blind eye to all the little things you got going on here. Because he had a lot of crap in his cell. I mean, a lot of stuff. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody has a little bit of stuff, but you look at that, as we talked about, there's no commissary there. So somebody's giving him stuff. It's not coming from a commissary, and and the warden knows it's coming from somewhere else. He's going to turn a blind eye to that. So that's kind of how it goes. And in the book, as you were asking, it all kind of more or less parallels that in the book. Would you agree, Andreas? You read it as well. I think it's pretty spot on.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while since high school I read it. But yeah, it's very close to that. It's just I think the narration is different. Like Red is not Morgan Freeman. Like, in terms of, like, he's more like an actual
Correct.
Irishman.
He's actually a white redheaded Irishman, graying redheaded Irishman. So that's where the nuance of the book comes in. It's just little bitty details that they change, either to accommodate the actor that they hired or to make it adapt. Because it's only like 101 pages. It's not a very long story. So 101 pages created this whole 2-hour movie that we're watching. And, so they pretty much kept the whole story, and they didn't deviate from it that much. And that's what makes it so magical, because they didn't try to recreate the wheel like they do with, like, going back to, like, Children of the Corn. It's really a Stephen King story in name only. They very little in association with the actual short story, which is much shorter. I think it's on like 30 or 40 pages. So they tried to stay as true to the book as possible, I think, or the short story.
Yeah, there's one major thing they did that changed that. It made sense for a movie. It's with Tommy, because I'm just looking at my notes here. It's like Tommy's outcome is different from the movie, and we'll get to that when we get into that. It's very different from the short story.
Gotcha.
And you get a little bit more background as to why some of them are there. Like, this person actually, I think, like Brooks, he actually ends up killing a girl. He gets mad at his wife, gets into a fight with her, backs out with a car or something, and ends up hitting this woman and her child, and kills them both. And that's how he ends up in prison in like 1905 or whatever, if I remember. That sounds about right, doesn't it, Andres? I believe that's what his crime was, if I remember correctly. Something along those lines. So you get a little bit more detail, but quick snippets, not deep.
Gotcha. Well, since we mentioned Brooks, what did you guys think of his character with the library and everything? And
I think it. Oh, go ahead.
I said I'll go ahead and
We meet him
have
on
you
day
answer
2.
first.
Who wants to talk
What was that,
first
Joey?
about Brooks?
Yeah.
We meet him on day 2 when Andy finds out how great the food is there with the big maggot, or mealworm, as it were, and then he gets to feed Jake, the baby bird. Turns into a great big Jake the Crow. I think he's one of the more likable characters, one of the more likable prisoners that Andy meets, and he's kind to him, and he sees that he's kind to animals. So he's a kind of a safe person to be around, which sets up, a shock later.
Right.
Which is excellent.
And I think he stays true to somebody that would have been from that generation. Like, there's not a lot of cussing that goes on with him or anything like that. He's kind of proper for a guy of that era because, you wouldn't openly cuss and things like that you would hear from other prisoners. Although I don't think there's a lot of it in this, but, somebody from his generation, that would have not been done. And he pretty much follows it. Very much looks like the old man. He's got the pants pulled up to basically the chest. It's basically, I don't know what happened to his waist, but he's basically wearing, chest pants of some sort. But and I enjoyed his relationship with the bird, even though it's very brief. You get to kind of see the bird at the beginning, and he's taken care of, and he keeps him all the way through. And that bird was kind of interesting too, because I guess it was really, they couldn't train it. So when you see like Tim Robbins enter the library to begin with, he kind of figured out the cadence of the bird and would kind of know when the bird was going to squawk. So he would time his lines in between the squawking of the bird, so that he could get the lines out and make it work. And I guess, Frank Darabont was super impressed with that, because otherwise it could have been a disaster. So he was very happy that he was able to do that.
Cool. Nice. And the other thing that I thought about Brooks is he kind of reminded me a little bit like the old man from Up.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
He may have been the model.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Well, one of the things I like about Brooks is a good. I like how they give a good example of what happened to a prisoner coming out from the prison.
Mhm.
Are they adjusting the real life after they get out? Like, how that affects them psychologically, and because I was so gutted when first time I saw this him not getting adjusted to outside life and like it's just not he's used to in the prison, and the fact that he had to commit suicide was really sad. His scene is like the one that a lot of people talked about, because it's one of those Chuck talks about the very dramatic drama about Shawshank Redemption. That scene alone is one of the most saddest things, because Brooks was such a nice person. We don't really know what happened to him in terms of how he got it there, but he was a decent man who he was important in prison. He was an education person like Andy, but when you get out, it's like you're a piece of meat for everyone. You're just nothing, because of your record and all that. And I really appreciate that the film really go out of his way and show, despite prison rehabilitation, you're not really back in society. You're just like this outcast, and that's what happened to Brooks. He became an outcast after he left Shawshank, and that was really sad. His scene alone is really sad, and I was like, I agree with Ray when he say he should have died in prison, not outside, and that hit me really hard as a viewer. It's like
it's the letter that he writes, and he was kind of like, I don't think I'm going to stay. That's, I think, tied to the next scene where you're like, oh no, it really, because you see those guys read it and then you see what he does, and it really just tugs at the heartstrings. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh.
I think they'd already gotten word before the letter got there.
Yeah. It's tough to know when they got the word or how, it was either before or later. But great touch. I like how he apologized to the person that he had the knife. I was, that always kicked me out. I was like, oh, he say sorry to him, for holding the knife to him. It's one of the it's one of the most saddest letters reading, and just the way that actor that does the narration. That's the thing that's so cool. Is like we get Morgan Freeman's narration, but we also got Brooks' narration was really cool. And like when he takes over, it's like, oh man, and it's like yeah, I just love that section. That's definitely not. I should say high point. That's the high point of what makes Shawshank Redemption really great.
It's a good story beat. I totally agree with you on that, Andres. It's neat that you kind of segued right into our next section. So, yeah. Did anyone else have any last minute thoughts before we move forward?
Nah.
All right.
The only thing I was going to say is I think Darabont, like this kind of scene throughout this entire film, he managed to capture the humanity and the struggle of these characters in a way that you don't normally get from a movie. Like he just every beat of this movie, like you feel what the characters are feeling. You understand their plight. You understand their remorse for what they've done, and you just like you get the humanity of each character and how they've gotten there, and and why what they've done, and how they're dealing with it, and how they deal as things progress throughout their lives, either in the prison or outside of it. It's an amazing way that he was able to take this from the book, move it to the big screen and portray that to the audience, and you feel it. It's just you feel the beat of every bit of this, and it makes you care about each and every character, even the ones that you don't get a super in-depth background on. Like you feel like you have a buy-in for each of these guys. They all have something to offer, and you're right there with them. It's an amazing job he did.
Yeah, and that applies to all his films, like The Green Mile, another Stephen King story he adapted, and same thing with The Mist, a great horror film where he nails that so well with the horror aspect. I agree with you, Tim. Sorry about transitioning to the scene. It's just like the Brooks scene, just perfectly one of the most well directed, crafted scene that could have been like handled poorly, but the fact that Frank Darabont just gives it the time and breath, it's just so alluring. Not alluring, but like very, just very methodical to like get the sense of our characters and the prison life in general. Because we don't do that all the time in films or TV.
Yeah, I gotta say, since this was the first time watching this film for me, I could definitely feel the emotion behind each of the characters, and the way that he was able to, the director was able to use that narration of Brooks as you see him going through all these steps of his new life outside of being institutionalized. You kind of get the idea of what he's going through. You see the sadness of just his day-to-day work and how he really can't fit in with society anymore because he's no longer that big fish in a small pond. He's now a small fish in this little pond, and he's just having a hard time accepting everything. And I just thought that was a great emotional beat to the movie. Kind of really helps drive the whole downside of what it's like to go through prison at that time. So yeah, it was definitely a tug on the old heartstrings. So, with that said, I think we'll go ahead and deal out some more points here. So, Andreas, I have to say, I really enjoyed the fact that you brought up SpongeBob SquarePants in this rather serious film. So I'll give you a point for that, bringing a little levity into that. Tim, our resident Christopher Lambert fan and Highlander aficionado, I got to give you a point for the Clancy reference, and I'm also going to give you a point for pointing out the squawking of the bird in between the cadence of Tim Robbins' lines. So that's 2 points for you there, buddy. So you're up to 3. Jeff, man, you were pretty quiet. I got nothing to give you, man. Unfortunately.
Hey, you know what? I've heard that from plenty of women before in the past in certain situations. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be all right. I'll be okay.
All right. Joey, same with you, man. I got nothing. Sorry. So
hey, here, how about this? That whole $35,000 give to your wife tax free. That's bullshit. Today, The 2024 limit is $18,000 tax-free gift to an individual. But if it's a married couple, it's finally got to that 35-ish number. It's $36,000. You can give, if you're loaded, you can give a $36,000 gift to a newlywed couple, and they don't have to pay any taxes on it.
Huh. Well, no,
Joey's going to give himself points.
Yeah. Now, they did say in the movie...
I've been thinking about that for years. Two things. Biting down on things when you get stuck in the head, you have a head injury. I'm like, is that real? And the fucking tax shit.
Well, it's funny because I think he quoted $60,000 on the rooftop.
He did. He said you can go up to $60,000. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's even more.
Oh, yeah. But so he was saying like maybe he'll have 35 left over, I think, after the tax man fucks him. So you're right.
But by today's standards, let's just so people understand they're like 35,000, no big deal. By today's standards with inflation, I think that's going to be roughly about $450,000 worth of money that
Did they say that was the summer of 49?
47.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the inflation calculator. All right, so we're going to do closest it'll do. Yep, we'll do 2024. We're going to do. No, I'm sorry.
1949.
Yeah, that was the year, but it was 65,000, right?
No, it was 35,000.
Yeah.
Here we go. How much money? What's this Clancy's name's character?
Doesn't matter. How much is $35,000 worth?
How much? Hadley, Shawshank, Redemption, tax.
This is the strangest.
He saved roughly $24,000 to $25,000 in taxes. It says his relative left him $15,000. How much did buy? 35,000. I was actually correct. All right, so I don't know. So let's do this. 35,000. We're gonna go down to 1949. You guys are saying 47 though.
No, it was 49. You're right.
It was 49.
It was 49. He's right. 47's when he got there, and I think he started working with it, right?
$461,073 $461,737.87. So basically $462.
Damn, I was in the ballpark. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so almost
Hot
half
dog.
a fucking $1 million. And then somebody was saying he saved him like 20 to 25,000 or something like that. Let's just say 22. Let's be generous. We'll even say 20. Yeah, he saved him basically almost half.
Nice.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I could see why he went and beat the shit out of Boggs Diamond. By the way, did you recognize the actor Boggs Diamond from anything else?
Yes, the movie he was in.
Aliens?
Aliens, yeah, I recognize him in Aliens. Was he in
The
one
Departed?
of the Departed? Was he?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He was the other undercover cop before yet another undercover type is revealed. Actually, there's two undercover cops, so there's two rats.
Yeah.
Who was he in Alien?
He holds the fake Mexican who's, I think, Eastern European Jew. What was her name? She was in brownface? Vasquez. He holds Vasquez. No, that's the other guy. That's the coward. No, I think he gets acid faced.
Yes.
He gets blinded.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's also in Lethal Weapon 2. He was in Rush Hour. He was one of the knowing.
He's in a lot of fucking movies.
Yeah. And I was just looking at it. His filmography. Yeah. I forgot he's in RoboCop 2. Actually, that's where I remember him from. He was one of the other Detroit police that were on the strike. And if you've seen RoboCop 2, by the way, guilty pleasure scene. Anyway, yeah,
Private Drake in Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Joey.
We need to let Matt move on here. He's dying.
You convinced me. I'll give you a point for the money.
He sprayed with acid.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, that we talked about Brooks. We talked about his unfortunate end. But now we're in 1954, and thanks to Andy Dufresne's letter writing campaign, he's able to receive some money for the prison library, and he also receives a bunch of books from local libraries that submitted stuff, as well as a record player and a bunch of records. And of course, this is where we get an interesting scene where he's going through the stuff. He sees a record and he decides to play it on the PA system, and he gets away with it for a while there because some guy is in one of the guards that was watching him slides off to the bathroom to pinch off a loaf while Andy's playing the record. And then, of course, he eventually gets stopped by the warden and some guards, and he's sent off to solitary confinement. Of course, after he's released from solitary confinement, Andy explains to a dismissive Red that he hopes Andy explains to a dismissive Red that hopes is what he gets him through his sentence. All right, I don't get that one. All right, I got a bad note there. So then we flash forward to 1963. Norton begins explaining that prison labor for public works, profiting by undercutting skilled labor costs and receiving bribes. Andy, of course, becomes the launderer for the money using the alias Randall Stevens. So basically, he's definitely moving up in the hierarchy of prison. And so I'm turning over to you guys. What do you think of Andy's rise in the structure of the prison? I'm gonna go to you first, Jeff, since you've been kind of quiet. What do you think of this whole sequence with Andy and the library and this laundering?
It's a nice I guess like moving piece of the middle part of the film. That helps push the story and again, adds some positivity to what is like, for the most part, really, sad material. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say, to be completely honest with you. There's nothing really that stands out to me that I want to talk about or anything like that. It's just a really good part of the movie. And, it's as far as like, I guess, Andy Dufresne's character or whatever, it's a big, a big part of his character development is during this part of the film.
Gotcha. Well, how about you, Andres? What did you think of Andy's use of the library, as well as just pointing out to Red that hope gets him through the prison sentence? And that's what I was kind of stumbling over earlier. I realized it was hope that I was trying to point out.
Yeah. So this section here, it's really fantastic. I mean, because you're seeing, the brains and the intellectual of Andy, doing all this, and like he's there's a line he say that it took me to get to prison to be like a crook, and I always found that very funny because he really is becoming a criminal, doing all this like embezzlement, despite because later we realize he's been framed for murder for his wife and lover, whatever. And so it's very funny to see him do all this papers and money laundry for the warden and all the guards, right? And you see how clever he is and how smart he is, that he can trick the government, by faking this person is really, really cool. Plus, the hope, is a very thematical theme throughout the Shawshank Redemption. Like, you need to hold hope to like keep yourself alive. No matter the conditions you're in. And that's what Andy is teaching Red, and I really dug that. Part when he gives the harmonic to Red in the next scene, because they were talking after he got out of the solitary from because of the music thing, why he didn't why he stopped using the harmonic and sing, and because having hope, because he reviews, because remember, Red's been there for a long time as a kid, and so he has this very cynical view on life, and like he thinks hope is a very poison thing because you don't know if either you can make it out of life in or outside of prison, and like we got the example of that with Brooks, like despite him being a free man, he wasn't mentally ready to be out there, as a free man. So that's why Red, scoffed Andy about hope, and I really like that. Andy has his way of like getting through Red by not like aggressively poking him. He just does something that was he slowly approaches him here, like very friendly, but like like no, like you need to take this side here and here. Let me give you this part that it's the small thing of hope is just have this American scene, or like what Andy has is like projects, for the library, or the rocks, or secretly this the posters, which we'll get into, like these small like moments you have is like the thing that keeps you grounded and be real for life, and keep you sane, in this routine life you have in prison. So I really dug this chapter because it's really important for the thematic crutch of the story and the short story that we read. So this sequence is really great, and that's something I saw recently. Because I saw this movie so many times, and I never understood why, like Andy gave the harmonic, to Red, but then it symbolized, look, I know hope could be, a dangerous thing, but here, let me give you this to have for you to keep hope, and that's it. It doesn't have to be that big, and Andy knows that. He's been in prison for what, 19 years, or up to 10 years at this point of the timeline.
Red lost the music in him.
Exactly.
And Andy gave it back.
Yeah, and he gave it back.
But
that's what it.
But he only did one blow on the harmonica.
He said he was going to do it later, and he did it later in the film, which that made me happy. So, but yeah. And it's similar to the music scene outside. Like, it was cool that Red did it, and it was inside, and where the people heard it. So, but yeah, I love this section. It's very important for the thematical crutch of the film, and I think Red, as I mentioned before, Red and Andy are the heart of the film. This is basically that for Danabon.
Interesting. I like how you've boiled down the hope to a single movement of a harmonica from one man to another. How about you, Tim? What did you think about the whole sequence of Andy passing along hope, as well as what do you think of them, explaining Randolph Stevens? I realize it's a 2-part question, so take your time.
What do you mean the Randolph Stevens part?
They break down and explain that Randall Stevens is the legal laundered
criminal
character.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
I got it. Yeah. So I'm going to expand a little on your question, just because I think this is the pivotal moment of the movie. This is what defines who Andy is. Everybody, we went back and we asked, like, did he do that thing on the roof just to feel normal? And I disagree. I think it was a calculated risk that he took. This is the moment that he does something to feel normal. He's going through, he's got all his books. He pulls out that record, and he's got the Canzonetta Zolaria from Mozart. He's into classical music. This is freedom to him. He's going to put this on the record player, and he's going to play it because it makes him feel normal. So he takes that chance, puts it on the record player in the warden's office, starts playing it, and it inspires him so much that he flips it on for the entire prison to hear. Locks the door, locks the guard, in the bathroom, which I don't know any bathroom in the world that has a key lock like that on there, but okay, we'll go with it. And it's his moment of just feeling normal. He kicks back in that chair and he's listening, and every prisoner and even the guards stop because nobody gets to hear something like this. And it inspires. It's like watching a flower grow. Like, everybody's like, I haven't heard something this inspiring, this beautiful in a long time. And everybody just literally stops and just looks wherever they're at whatever, loudspeaker there near, and they're just listening to this thing, and it's just singing out, and they're all, just for a moment, they all get that like breath of fresh air. For a minute, I get to remove myself from the prison and get to envelop myself into this piece of classical music that's going to take me away from this dreary, drab place that I've had to deal with day in and day out for years. And the warden, one, is mad because he's doing that, and two, his whole thing is to keep these guys down. So he's trying to get them to open up, turn it off, and open up the door. And what does Andy do? Nah, he just turns that thing up. He's like, I'm going to make this moment last as long as I can, because I know in the end I'm going to pay in spades for what I just did. But in the moment, I'm going to live here. And he explains later on, like, look, they can do a lot of things. I can get beaten, I can get raped, I can get thrown in the hole, but they can't take music away from me. It's in my head, and I can listen to it, and I can enjoy it, and I can escape in it. And that's what gives me hope. And he shares that with Red, because Red doesn't understand that. Like, in the beginning, Red's like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, well, didn't you ever listen to music? He goes, I used to play in a harmonica. He goes, well, you should do it again. And as Andres points out, he's like, and he's like, you should do that again. He's like, no, that gives you hope, and you shouldn't have hope in here. He's like, no, you absolutely should. And as Andreas points out, he buys in the harmonica, gives it to him, and Red's resistant for a long time. He's like, I'm not playing it. Just kind of boxes it up and hangs on to it. And later on, he finally puts a little blow into that thing, because he's like, maybe he's right. Maybe there is a little hope in here, and maybe I should investigate this. So that's a definitive moment of normalization for Andy, that this is who I am, and this allows me to escape here. And the other thing, as Andres points out too, is that this is where we learn, exactly as he says, I had to go to prison to become a criminal. He has to, he's not only working on books for people, but now he's laundering money at a very, high level. So he makes it a game. Look how smart I am. I created this fake person. It's all going to go back to him. He has accounts. He has a driver's license. I've created a social security number, the whole deal for him. This is what gives him purpose too, because if I got to be stuck here, at least I have this fun game to play. You know what I mean? Even though he's doing criminal activity, he knows I can't get, in trouble for it. So let's see how far I can take this thing. And, and when Red finds out, he's like, that's awesome. That's just the most amazing thing I've ever heard of. Dude, you are off the hook. Incredible. I can't believe you did this. It dumbfounds me. So, it's the other thing that gives him purpose and keeps him distracted in an otherwise dreary and horrible, circumstance. Because as far as he knows, he's there for life. He ain't ever getting out. You know what I mean? So if I got to be here, then I'm going to do what I can to normalize my life, make it better for myself and the people around me, and try to keep myself engaged so that I don't lose hope.
Don't let go. You've got the music in you. One dance left. The world is gonna pull through.
See, look at Joey's living that life too.
Yep. Well, Joey, what about you? What do you think about the hope message in this whole sequence?
It is the message of the film. At the end, I only listened to the end scene commentary with Frank Darabont, and he said that this movie, he gets letters from people saying they were going through a rough patch in their divorce, they lost their job, they had a big breakup, they're going through something, somebody died, and they need to pull through. Oddly enough, he didn't mention prisoners, or I missed that. But I think maybe he left that out. Or I missed it, but anyhow, he said he gets people saying this movie, gave me some kind of motivation to realize things are going to get better. Another movie like that is Castaway, where you never know what the tide will bring. So things can get dark, but you have to. If you hold out hope, you have a plan, and you pull an Andy Dufresne and you push for it. Things can turn around, at least better than they were. Funny thing about Andy Dufresne and his strolls. Remind me about the strolls when we come to that part.
Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of that sequence. I got a few points to hand out to you guys. So, Andres, I will give you a point for pointing out that Andy Dufresne had to go to prison to become a criminal. Very nice points. Tim, your soliloquy on the normalization of Andy with the music, I'll give you a point for that. And Joey, for busting into song, I'll give you a point for that, buddy.
Your ears will never be the same. I apologize.
I did not get a point for my awesome Mr. Krabs imitation. There's just no justice in this podcast.
Oh, I didn't give you that?
No.
Clancy Brown.
Oh, my bad. I even had that note on there. I totally missed it. I am so sorry. Yes, you do have a point for your Mr. Krabs.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Is that every day I get to do a good Mr. Krabs?
All right. And Jeff, for just looking less constipated, I'll give you a point for that.
You look so sad, Jeff.
Cigarettes, man, they help you go.
I'm not sad, I promise.
By the way, Jeff, you're Iceman right now, so your face is having the best profile right now. It's like
Iceman.
Yes. You're talking, but your face is like not moving. It's like
well, that's always the best.
Yeah.
Well, to give you an idea of where everybody's at, Joey is leading the group at 8 points. Tim is in second place with 5. Andres, you have 4, and Jeff, you have 2 points, man. So,
better
of course,
get
as
the
we all
independent
know,
vote going there, Jeff. You got to rally the independents.
I'm passing all my points to Trump anyway. At the end of the night.
Well, as we move on down the road, time flies by in Shawshank, and it's now 1965. And Andy and Red are befriended by Tommy Williams, a young prisoner incarcerated for burglary. A year later, Andy helps him pass his general education development exam. Tommy reveals to Red and Andy that his cellmate at another prison had claimed responsibility for the murders for which Andy was convicted. Andy brings the information to Warden Norton, who does not want to know. When Andy mentions that the money laundering, Norton sends him to solitary confinement and has Hadley fatally shoot Tommy under the guise of an escape attempt. After Andy refuses to continue the money laundering, Norton threatens to destroy the library, remove Andy's protections by the guards, and move him to worse conditions. So, as our resident professional jail, what's the word I'm looking for? Know-it-all, Jeff. What did you think of solitary confinement?
Well, I mean, solitary confinement in all reality is really like scary to think about. To be honest with you, the way they depict it in the prison is like brutal. Like, I mean, obviously they don't like they don't have that. Like they I guess they do in like, in like probably like the max prisons and stuff like that. They probably have it, but when you go to like the county jail, they don't have anything like that. Like they've got like the max, they've got like the general population wing of the jail, and then they've got like the medical wing, and then like some jails might have the psych wing, but that's it. Like there's no solitary confinement, and yeah, I mean, Andy Dufresne is hating life at this point in the movie. It's looking pretty rough for him without question, and like I said, this is a really sad film, very depressing.
Right. While I got you here, what did you think of his whole interaction with Warden Norton, though? Calling the warden obtuse when you can clearly tell that Andy's trying to get his point across.
Such a good word.
I mean, like I mostly think about this movie through the lens of like my childhood, and as a kid, you don't really understand what's really happening necessarily, like to the full extent you do as an adult in this film. The ramifications of some of the conversations and the dialogue and things like that, they don't come across quite as hard. But obviously, like like Andy's wronged in the film by the warden and everything. Like his treatment of him is obviously like, contemptuous. You know what I'm saying? Like, besides that, I don't know what else to say.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I mentioned Tommy Williams, and I'm going to go back to you, Andres. What do you have to say about Tommy Williams and the whole interaction between Andy and him, as well as Tommy's unfortunate end?
Yeah, I think you could say this is a turning point for the story that we get here for Andy. Like, now, like, you were talking about hope, right? This is like the biggest hope that Andy has because, at first, because, man, you brought up, it's your first time, and the way that the beginning is, I thought initially, he did do the murders, but then all of a sudden, there's this twist where, oh, no, Andy is innocent, and, like, there was another person that did it, and it's like, whoa. And, it does happen, actually, in real life, that, unfortunately, people get framed for these crimes, and, and and with Tommy, I read, did this perfectly in the narration that Tommy is another project for Andy, because he's done all this, library and, so many things like he has done, rebuilding the library and stuff like that. So, and, doing, this laundry thing with the Warren, right? So he has to do something, right? As Tim said before, it's a game for him. Like, I need to do something. It's like Red brought up the chess. Like Andy has this chess here. Like, what he needs to do to keep himself, normalized in this
Greaser
prison.
Tommy becomes his new project.
Exactly.
Getting him his high school equivalency.
Exactly. And I'm surprised Andy did it, but it just shows how Andy is a very good person, and like the fact he's gonna help this kid is it's really, like, it makes Andy very endearing to the audience, and like it makes me really appreciate Andy, what he's done for this kid, but also what he does for the prisoners, and and all that. And it's like it just makes him a very a heroic character in this very bleak setting. The death of Tommy, when I saw that, I was like, oh god. And this is where the switch now, like, you really see the Warren being very, like, evil, and like he has his own, he's selfish, which we kind of saw that in the beginning, like with the Bible and all that, as Jeff said before, you're trying to stamp your authority on this prison, but like not as far as like this Warden did. And like the fact that he took, this like risk of killing this kid, for because of this accountability of the truth. It was, I was really sad, and this is where I'll bring up the short story. In the short story, when I read it, and Tim will back up, he didn't die in the short story. He was transferred to another prison so that he doesn't interrupt what's going on in Shawshank and all that. But I think it was a necessary change to like really hate the Warren, as an audience person. This is now I'm like, okay, I want Andy to just try to get him to take down the Warren down now. I really want to see the Warren just get punched, and and that scene in the solitary when he just like, it's like, I'm gonna take everything from you, your library, everything you have done this last 19 years or whatever, and it just shows the dark side of Warren, the Warren. And speaking of the actor here, who plays the Warren, just bear with me,
Bob Gunton.
Yeah, Bob Gunton, a great actor. He played the Owl in the Daredevil season 1. He was great there. He's in Demolition Man, as we brought up. He's in Argo. Fantastic actor. I think his role here is really fantastic. He really plays that, like, shady, Warren, who, just cares about just power and control, and I think that's where the change happens. And you brought up, Matt, the tooth stain. I rewatched it. I think it offends him because he's like questioning his authority. I think Andy, right, during that like meeting he's talking about, Like, but it's not that. It's the part where he's like, "Look, I'm not gonna tell anyone about the laundry money." That's where the warden gets really scary, because the reason he does the solitary month and all that is because Andy brings up, the money and all that. It's like, first off, if you're like me, you don't bring that up, because that you get in trouble with that, and that was the mistake Andy did. But that's unfortunately, Andy was just very excited, like he had hope now to get out.
His
Like,
hope was going to get him killed.
Exactly, and so that's what happened.
If I could just put a quick question to you about that, then.
Mhm.
So, do you normally launder money?
In my timeline, yes. For the 10 rings, if I had to say that here, that's right, folks. I work for the 10 rings. To defeat the Avengers and all that. But it's all confidential, so I cannot say too much.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
All right, Joey. How about you? What did you think of the whole interaction between Andy Dufresne and the warden? Do you think the warden should have trusted Andy when he brought him back out of solitary?
No, I think he really underestimated Andy. Everybody did, because he'd been planning this for almost the entire 19 years he was there. Because he asked for the rock hammer, and the first year he was there, or for first few weeks. But then again, he wasn't really planning it, because I guess he really, until he asks for the poster, that's when he actually plans to escape. But this deterred that plan. This made him think that he's going to get out and clear his name, but he's not seeing the big picture, that he's part of a piece of a puzzle that can't be. It's like, once you're in, you're in. They need him in there for life. As soon as he gets out, he's a free man. He could squeal, and the warden doesn't have any control over him anymore. He might ask for some of that money, especially since he's been there for so damn long and he's been wrongly incarcerated. So this is, he didn't realize he was juggling a loaded gun, and he was too optimistic talking to the warden about this. He should have wrote letters or something to someone without letting them know if he wanted to get out of jail legitimately. But he was stupid and didn't do that. So I don't know how it goes down in the book, but man, does the warden really have a good bullshit line for him, is that this kid's just trying to thank you by telling you this fantastical story. But jailhouse confessions really do happen. A lot of people have gotten more time because they said something to their cellmate very stupidly, and then the cellmate, he goes to his lawyer and tells him, this happens a lot, like, hey, I got this information, I want you to see if you can get them to lighten my sentence if I testify against this guy. And they either get out of jail free, so to speak, or they just get a lighter sentence and they get transferred. So it's a real thing, and I think the warden went and sussed it out and found out that this guy, this mystery man, really exists, and he really did time at the place where the guy's saying he did time, and therefore it's credible. And so the only thing that remains is to find out if Greaser Tommy is loyal to Andy, and will he actually testify against this other man? And that's a death sentence.
Right. Exactly. How about you, Tim? What, Andres did mention the story. What did you think of the movie's interpretation of Tommy Williams versus the book?
I thought it was a good interpretation. I mean, he took a little liberty here, but he Darabont's done that with all three of them that he's filmed the Stephen King books. This one, The Green Mile, and he definitely did it with The Mist, which is my favorite short story. But man, do I hate the ending that he created for The Mist. It's, as an adult, it's super hard, or as a parent, it's super hard to watch. And I don't want to get too far into it, but I think it was good. I think it lent to the movie because what he did is, I mean, first he does a good job of establishing Andy's relationship with Tommy. You know, like Tommy comes in, they all kind of like him because he's just a smart ass kid, and then Tommy realizes like, hey, look, I want a better life for myself and for my family. You know, and he kind of goes to Andy to get help, and you know, and Andy's that guy like, look, I'll help anybody that wants to help themselves, but not if they're not really, you know, really wanting it. So he kind of calls him to the table, and it's like, no, I'm not helping. I got that kind of time in my life to mess around with a loser like you. And he's like, no, really, I really want to do this. It's like, all right, well, then we're going to do it. And he's like, no, totally. And it enamors Tommy towards Andy because he takes his time, takes an interest in him, looks towards Andy as, you know, more probably a father figure that took an interest in him and stuff. So when he finally realizes that, like, you know, why Andy's there, and he's like, oh my God, I was in a cell with a guy who committed to that crime. And he tells him, like, Andy gets super excited. But this is also a moment where it takes Ward Norton's, you know, character, you know, basically this is where Bob Gunton's going to shine. I mean, again, it may be his second best performance to his, you know, performance against Steven Seagal in The Glimmer Man, but, you know, we won't go there tonight. But you know, it just shows like this warden, this is a guy who's like, everybody who's in my prison is a hardcore prisoner that's here for life. I own them lock, stock, and barrel. They will do my bidding however I see fit. And if they don't, bad things will befall them. And most of the time you just seen it happen through the guards. You know, we get to see it through, you know, Captain Hadley and things like that, where they beat a prisoner to death and the warden doesn't make a big deal of it. Like, whatever, they die 30 years from now or 30 seconds from now, whatever. I'm not going to worry myself about it. But Andy's the goose that lays the golden egg. You know what I mean? So like he's not going to let this guy go. And so once Andy goes and says, you know, listen, dude, I got the evidence. I just need your help. I need to get the lawyer, this, that, and the other. And the warden's like, oh no. Like that can't possibly happen. And I love that Andy looks at him, he's like, how can you be so obtuse? I love that he uses the word obtuse. Like most writers would just dumb that down. It makes everybody go and look that word up and hopefully add it to their vocabulary. So not a word you hear very commonly. So I enjoyed that. But you know, so he's like, I got to put an end to this. So not only does he figure out that this Tommy kid is enamored and, you know, with Andy and is willing to do anything for him. So he's got to eliminate him as a threat. But unlike in the book, again, where he sends him away, he kills him, which solidifies now that he's just as dirty and bad as the guards around him. Like it's just, you know, this is dirty from the top down all the way to the core, you know, and he's going to do whatever he has to do to protect himself and keep his world intact. And so he eliminates the threat. And now, much like the military, he has to break Andy. So he's going to put him in the hole and he leaves him there. And Tim Robbins, like, he actually went and did time prior to filming this in a hole just to try to get that feel for it so he would know how to act, even though he knew it would never really be real because he could leave anytime he wanted. But he still tried to do it, you know. So I'll give him props.
That's method as fuck.
Yeah, that is method. He went through the process to try to get a feel for it.
Did he do it like a full 24 hours?
I didn't really say how long he did it. It just said that he did it. So, you know, in my research of this, so he you know, he did it. So did he do it for 24 hours? Did he stay there for a week? I don't know. But I mean, the hole is nowhere you want to be. I mean, it's dark. There's nothing for you to see. You're probably pissing and shitting in a bucket. You're eating crappy food and stuff. You know, I mean, there's no contact. I mean, if you want to know how that feels, spend a day, turn off all the lights in a room with no window and stay there all day doing nothing and you'll get an idea. It's not a good time. Like, you don't want to be in that situation for very long. And he leaves him there for 2 months. So he's there to break him. And then once he opens up the door, you know, that basically you got, you know, Hadley kind of gives him that look, steps aside, and then you see the warden come and he's like, well, it's a real shame about what happened to Tommy. It's so sad that he tried to escape and he got killed. It's a real shame, but I'm hoping you realize that, you know, bad things happen all the time and we have to move past it. And you just need to get back on, you know, to doing what you were doing. And he's like, oh no, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm done. And he's like, oh, you are far from done, because I will burn your world to the ground. You know what I mean? So he'd already been in there for a month. So he's like, you're going to do what I say, when I say, and you're going to do it how I say to do it. And if you don't, I'm going to destroy your library. I'm going to make your life so miserable. I'm going to put you down with the worst common denominator in this prison. You will be used like a Bangkok whore, and your life here will be as miserable as anybody's can be. And he goes, and just so you have some time to think about that, I'm going to put you back in for another month. I mean, that's it. Like, so he leaves him there to think about that. So when Andy comes out,
how Matt toned it down, but Tim made it worse.
I know.
Well, threatens to put him into a less savory part of the prison or something like that. Yeah. And then Tim goes, Bangkok whore.
Well,
the line was, I'm going to put you down in an area with the sodomites.
Right. Well, there you go.
You'd have greater opportunity to get raped.
Yeah,
that was, and then he wouldn't have their protection. That's all he said.
I think I really needed to emphasize where that was going. I think that it required that kind of description. Yeah, there was no 50-cent word to use there. We're just going to go to the lowest common denominator, so everybody understands it was going to be a bad day for Andy. So, and then he gives him another month in solitary to think about it. When Andy comes out, he's like, I'm going to have to play ball with this guy, but I'm going to figure out a way to burn his world down, and I've been working on it for a while. So that's when Andy makes the decision. I am leaving this place. Hell or high water, I'm going to figure out a way out, and I've already been working on it for a long time, and then I'm going to make this guy pay. So it's the definitive turning point for Andy's character.
Gotcha. Well said, everybody. I really appreciate all of your guys' input on this sequence. Yes, it is definitely a turning point in the story. But before we get towards the end of the story, I just want to delve out some points here. So, Tim, I gotta say, I'm gonna give you a point for mentioning the missed ending. Yes, it is hard to watch, but it's definitely something to look into. I also want to give you a point for mentioning Steven Seagal and the Glimmer Man. All right, I gotta say that's quite clever. And then, of course, the description of a Bangkok woman.
Matt's children are within earshot. I just realized that's why he's cleaning it up.
I'm going to give a point to both you and Joey for pointing that out. So, Tim, that brings you up to 8 points. Joey, you are currently at 9 points, but I am going to give you another point for pointing out that it wasn't until he got the poster that he started digging the hole to China. All right.
Yeah. He carved his name, and then it's like, oh shit, I can get out of here. I need a fucking poster.
Yeah.
He had that Alcatraz moment when he realized that wall was brittle. But it's kind of funny if you think about it. Had Andy had only one cell over, this whole movie would be moot, because all he could have done is tunnel to the next cell. So it just was fortuitous that he was at that end cell.
Now I've got 2 points still to hand out, so I'm going to throw this out to the floor. So feel free, anyone, to answer one of these two questions to get yourself some points. So the first question is, how does Han Solo tie to Andy Dufresne?
He was going to. Harrison Ford was up for the role, was he not?
Yes.
No, I'm thinking that the opposite. I'm thinking that Tim Robbins tried out for Han Solo.
Well,
because a lot of people did. Tom Selleck, I know, was up front.
Oh, no. Yeah, Harrison Ford was actually up for the Morgan Freeman role.
Yeah, Red, because that's what I heard in the notes. Yeah, he was for... So initially, it was actually when, Castle Rock was going to distribute this film, it was actually Tom Hanks and who was the other chap that they brought up?
Jeff Bridges.
Harrison Ford and Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was supposed to play Andy, and I think Harrison Ford was going to be Red initially when the head studio was going to produce the film, but that didn't happen.
Did the Church of Scientology talk Tom out of it?
No.
We don't need anything else getting rumors floated around about you.
No. He was probably doing Mission Impossible at that time.
All right. Well, Andres,
I think we fail.
I gotta say that wasn't the exact answer I was looking for.
Okay.
But I will give you a point for that. The answer I was going to say is Ally McBeal.
Oh,
So Tommy is played by a gentleman by the name of Gil Bellows. And in 1997, he played opposite of Ally McBeal on the TV show Ally McBeal. He was the love interest. And of course, as we all know, Calista Flockhart has married
Harrison Ford.
Ford.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
What are we back at? Shaft? Was it Shaft? Is that where we're back again? We're doing one of those kind of things, you know?
All right. So the last question for the final point is: can anyone pronounce the name of the town that Andy moves to?
Tazwataneo.
Zihuatanejo.
so tornado.
All right. I will give it to Joey. All right.
I looked at the captions, though. It
Ah,
does begin with a Z.
man. I knew there
All
was
right,
a
so-
Z in it.
Joey gets a point. Andres gets a point for the Harrison Ford, and so does Tim. All right. So here we are at the final sequence of the movie. Andy is released from solitary confinement after 2 months and tells a skeptical Red that he dreams of living in Zihuatanejo, a Mexican town on the
Mexico.
on the Pacific coast. He asked
Spoiler
Red to-
alert, it's the Virgin Islands.
Oh, okay.
They didn't want to have to get permits to film in Mexico.
He asks Red to promise him once he's released to travel to a specific hayfield near Buxton and recover a package that Andy buried there. Red worries about Andy's mental well-being, especially when he learns that he has asked a fellow inmate for a length of rope. At the next day's roll call, the guards find Andy's cell empty, and irate Norton throws a rock at the poster hanging on the cell wall and finds behind it a tunnel that Andy had dug with his rock hammer over nearly 2 decades. The previous night, he had used the rope to escape through the tunnel and prison sewage pipe, taking Norton's suit, shoes, and ledger containing evidence of the money laundering and corruption at Shawshank. While guards are searching for him, Andy poses as Randall Stevens and withdraws over $370,000 of the laundered money from several banks and mails the ledger to a local newspaper, thus sending the state police to Shawshank to take Hadley into custody while Norton commits suicide to avoid arrest. So that's a whole lot to unpack for the ending of this film. And I'm going to turn it over to you first, Tim. How does this ending differ from the book, or does it differ?
Boy, it's been such a long time. I can't say 100%. I want to say again, pretty close to the book, follows most of the beats. I think it's pretty spot on. I know the last sentences of it. Are we going all the way to the end, like completely 100%, or no? You got one more section.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know the last statements by Morgan Freeman at the very end are exactly as the book is, for sure, 100%. But it's good. I mean, I like the way he draws out the ending and the way it's presented, step by step. I mean, there's first, him having kind of the morbid conversation with Red, and Red's like really worried that Andy's gonna like off himself. And then there's things that indicate like he asked for the length of rope from the one dude's like, I gave it to him. It's Andy. Why wouldn't I give it to him? He's like, why would you do that and stuff? So he's like, look, I've spent a lot of long nights in prison, but this is the longest. So he's very worried. You see Andy's interaction with the warden, and the warden's like, look, chop, I got a place to go. He's like, sure, let me finish the books and stuff. And he's up to something, and it kind of, doesn't really present it there, but it does in a couple more scenes. He's like, take my laundry down to the, or my clothes down the laundry. I want you to shine my shoes. I want to be able to see myself in it. He hands in the books and stuff. And I like the slow burn. So, Andy shines the shoes, but then, you don't really realize it, but he puts them on his feet, puts his crappy shoes in the box, which we get to see a little later. He's walking along, kind of gives that look at Red. Red doesn't realize he's wearing these super shiny shoes as he walks to his cell. They all go in there. There's the long night waiting to happen. And then the next day they open up that cell and he's just magically freaking gone. I mean, which is just Like, they're like, where the hell? Like, he was here, he's not here. Look, he's in the ledger. It says he's here. And he's like, where did this guy go? And they're asking Red. Red's just like, I have no idea, and if it wasn't for the fact that he starts throwing those little, like, other stone figurines that he makes, I don't know if he'd even figured it out as quickly as he did, that he tunneled through that wall. And you see that wall when he finally lifts up that post, you see how big that wall is that he went through. That's a lot of damn digging with that little tiny hammer. I have one of those rock hammers, man. I can't imagine digging through that much of a wall, And then we see, Andy, there was a fortuitous storm, so he's able to smash into that sewage pipe. And I don't know, what was it, like 5 football lengths worth, football field's length worth of pipe. Like, man, I can't imagine doing such a thing. And I guess when Tim Robbins had to do that scene, he had to immerse himself in that muddy water, go through that pipe. He told me he wasn't going to do it because I think they had a chemist come in and actually test the water that was in that pipe. And the guy's like, dude, it's lethal. It's just like, like no human beings should be in this, but somehow they talked Tim Robbins into doing it. But I mean, it was just muddy water he's in. But I mean, you think about that. 5 football fields of crawling through human fecal matter to free yourself. I mean, I can't, I just, that's the part that messes me up even more than the thought of being in solitary, is just to be in that pipe for that long. But he finds his way out and stuff, gets himself cleaned up. He brings all the appropriate stuff. He's got the books. He's got everything with him. He's got a change of clothes. He's got those shoes. Like, he's got a bar of soap. He brought everything he needed, and he gets himself to town, manages to start checking out money. And so while the guards are all trying to figure out where he's at, they spend a bunch of time, and then they figure out he's gone. So of course they got the manhunt going, and he's like, well, that's all there is to this. I just got to get this guy back before he finally like rats me out or something, or says something to somebody. And then he hears the sirens coming, and he's like, oh crap, this cannot be good. Like, what the hell? Because I didn't ask for any more help in this, and then he runs to his safe and he opens it up, and he realizes that he switched the books out. So this is where the slow burn keeps going. Like, little by little, the warden just keeps realizing that this day keeps getting worse and worse. Like, he stole my shoes, he stole my clothes.
It was part of a montage.
Okay, well, regardless, he
they
doesn't
looked
realize
for Andy for weeks, and then because he had to mail the package off.
Oh, that's
the
true.
only
You're
thing
right.
He did that day was he mailed it to the press,
right.
And so it would have been, they would have done their own research. It would have probably been at least over a week or so.
Yeah, but he doesn't figure it out right away, and so like it gives Andy plenty of time to go get the money, mail that off, as you say, Joey, and disappear. And then he realizes when he opens that up, and it's that Bible, and that's where he'd been hiding that hammer the whole time, and he held that in his hands at one point. He could have found that hammer, like it would have been all over, and he hands it back to Andy in the cell and stuff. So it just keeps adding to, bad to worse. And then you see the cops come up, and of course they arrest Captain Hadley, which I want to point out too. This is right around 1965, 66, I think it says in there.
Yeah, 65.
And if you remember back on our early days when we started our podcast, we were talking about the Untouchables, and we went over the Miranda rights. I think I brought that up in that podcast. That's right around the exact same time that they started Miranda rights. So you actually see that copy has to pull that piece of paper out and read the guard as Miranda rights, which I thought was kind of an interesting little add-in that most people wouldn't realize. Like, that was a brand new thing that they had to start doing because the Supreme Court had ordered it down, that you must read the Miranda to people so they understand their rights. So I thought that was kind of cool. They added that in there. And I don't think most people would have realized that unless you're up on such weird nuances of the law like I am. And then, of course, we got the warden looks down, sees this, and then he sees them coming for him, and he's like, oh, there's no way I'm going to end up like these guys. And he finally just offs himself to end it, And then the ending of this is brilliant because the director, Darabont, he wanted to end it with, we see Red, we see his life, and he decides he's going to skip, he's going to go skip bail, or not bail, but skip corrections, checking in with his parole, skip parole. That's where I was looking for. And he gets on the bus, and that's where Darabont wanted to end it. It was just him on the bus and him to kind of say those lines. And the studio was like, no, we need a happier ending. So we want to have a reunion. And he didn't really want to do that. So we get, as Andreas points out, probably one of the greatest scenes where we get to see that reunion, but we get to see it from a crane shot from a distance. Like, there's not a lot, there's no dialogue or anything. There's just him kind of like narrating over the top of it. So we know there's a reunion there, but it's done in such a way that it's all in your mind, like how the happy reunion goes. And, these two friends are going to be together and get to hang out after this horrible ordeal that they both had to endure. So it's just a beautiful ending. I just absolutely fantastic, beautiful ending. And I think it's what sews this film into the hearts of everybody, because you felt for all these characters. You felt for Andy. You realize that he's innocent. Red's paid his dues, and now he just wants to spend time with his friend, and they get to have this reunion. And you just extrapolate from there that hopefully this, from going forward, they got the money they need. Everybody who could ever come after them is no longer in the picture, and they're going to get to live out the rest of their life, getting to hang out in a very comfortable manner, and it's almost like a weird love story between a non-sexual love story between two men. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's heartfelt in that friendship, and you feel it, and you really enjoy that ending. I know I do, and I feel when Andreas gets to his point here, he's going to say the same thing.
If they remade the movie, they would have them kiss. But no, it's just two friends that have been friends for so long, they've become family. That's the best way to describe it.
It's kind of like those war films. You see those guys serving together in war, kind of something along those lines. I agree with you there, Joey. How about you, Andreas? What did you think of this whole end sequence of Andy Dufresne escaping from prison and then wrapping up to the end of the movie?
Fantastic. I mean, one of the best climax and third act that we have for a film. I mean, the escape was really cool. This is a great attention detail from Darren Bonus, like how this happened, and I just love that whole like explaining how did Eddie escape. It was like so satisfying. It took I think Darren actually say it took 10 or 8 years for him to dig the hole, and using various posters from the decades from Rita Hayworth up to the current poster, the Raquel Welch from the 100 billion BC film. I just love that reveal, and I just love the Warren gets so annoyed and frustrated. He's like, God damn it, hallelujah. He's he just called so berserk because of the situation, and I just love when he throws it at the poster is like that clicking. It was like, oh, okay. And then the payoff was so good that that first night he had the hammer. He saw the wall was can't be penetrated. Like he took so many years to dug it. This is pretty cool. And yeah, and I love the detail, particularly with the Bible. When the warden takes the Bible out, you see he actually wrote one of the Bible citations that I think they were when they first met, when they were doing cleaning out the cell. Andy recite one of the lines in the Bible to him first, and he did it again here in the first page. He signed it for the warden, and then that was a cool burn for that, and you see the hammer.
The warden pointed out that seek salvation within this book, and then Andy said, "Yes, you were right. Salvation was in the book."
In the book, yes, it was. Oh, it was so great. One of the best birds ever. I was like, yes, thank you, Andy. And then the death of with the warden, actually that was different from the short story. I double checked this. He didn't die in the short story. He actually resigned 3 months after Andy escaped. So he didn't die. This is another change that Ron did. And it makes a lot of sense. I think for the warden, he was not gonna give in and all that. He was such a selfish and very power hungry person. He was not gonna take it, so he just took the way the cheating around, killing himself. So so it made a lot of sense. But it was funny. A funny line from Red Eye, he say Clayton Brown's character was crying when he got arrested. He was
that was a good one.
That was so funny. I thought that was a good line from there. And and then I want to bring up after that whole commotion. I like how the inmates, reminisce Andy. I really love that. And oh my god, the what was it? The promotion. The Red going to the promotion to get release. That scene alone is really Morgan Freeman's best performance. Like just telling that that approver, or whatever you want to call it. Because we see it
Roll board.
parole board. Thank you, Matt. We see a couple times in the film he gets rejected. This last time, he just honestly tells him, "Look, I regretted that decision of what I did as a kid, but I'm not stupid. I'm just an old man. So you're just wasting my time." Like he just didn't pretend. Like he just be himself, telling them, "Look, I regretted my decision, but I cannot do anything to fix that mistake. It's all in the past, And it's such. I'm discerning the whole dialogue that Morgan Freeman does to tell that pro meeting about his regrets and all that, and it's such a beautiful scene. And then, bam, he gets approved, and I was like, yes, And then you get a little similar scene like Brooks, him not adjusting to life, but as Andy, brought up before, if you do get out, meet me to this spot, which he does. He has, find some money. He sees he's in Mexico now, and so Andy was the hope for Red outside, and so he didn't do the thing with the way Brooks did. He took his chance, go out and meet Andy, and it's such a beautiful scene. This is the best way you do like a reunion ending. I know I understand why maybe everyone was resisting, but I like the way he shot it here. Just pull away. You don't need dialogue for the scene. You get that emotional, catharsis already. Like seeing these two men that have been following for 2.5 hours. It's really emotional, and the music by Tom is doing is where you could tell this is the moment we're waiting for, and it just hits it well. And again, I brought up Roger Deakins, great cinematography from Skyfall, Blade Runner 2049, and 1917. The way he shots that scene with the beach and that beautiful blue water is so beautiful. It just gets you really happy at the end of the scene. It's just really beautiful. And I just want to bring up a note here. There's a person that passed away towards the end here, and I just want to bring this up here because apparently this was actually Darren Dunn's agent that helped him through Hollywood, and the reason he put why his name was put up here is because he unfortunately passed away with AIDS complications. If anyone wants to know about why we have that, he's not a film actor or anything like that. It's just actually Frank Darabon's former agent that helped him in Hollywood to get projects or get a job. He unfortunately passed away during the 90s with an A application. So it was very sweet, and to do that. I didn't know that also. I just had to put that in my notes here. Overall, fantastic movie. One of the best 1994 film. Its 30th anniversary is this year. So I was very happy you guys put this in the schedule. Very sad it did not win any nominations. Fortunately, fucking Forrest Gump was this. I don't care if you guys are fans of the movie. It's an awful movie. I hate it. I hated that my teacher showed me this in my senior year. I'm like, what the hell? I will take Apocalypse Now over Forrest Gump or Toy Story or Pulp Fiction. Why that movie? I'm sorry. It annoys
What
me.
you don't like the fact that Tom Hanks got to tell JFK that he had to go pay?
No, and I didn't like the part where he tells the black chick, "Oh, the box is full of chocolates," and I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, I was like,
does it enrage you, Andreas, that Tom Hanks was also up for the part of Andy Dufresne but couldn't do it because he was doing Forrest Gump? How do you feel about that?
Look, he didn't need that second win. Like the first win for Philadelphia is his best Oscar win, best performance. So anyway, that's all I had to say. Great film. Happy 30th anniversary for Shawshank Redemption. One of the best movies of all time and best Stephen King adaptations.
If it makes you feel better, the Robert Zemeckis movie that reunites Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, Jenny. So all three of them were involved with Forrest Gump. Then their new movie here isn't doing so well. So what goes around comes around, Andre.
That's true. Yeah, I'm like, I should be happy for that. Like, I'm happy that Why Whoopa is doing well the 6th week in box office. Yeah, that is true.
But Andreas, you should be happy that I'm going to be able to do The Green Mile eventually, which is another Stephen King book.
Oh, I love The Green Mile. Oh, one of the best ones too.
You know, it's funny when I told when I told my wife that we were watching Shawshank Redemption for our podcast, she's like, "Oh, I'll watch that with you." And as we're watching, like, I don't remember this movie. It doesn't seem like. Am I thinking of another movie? You might be thinking The Green Mile. Oh yeah. So I can definitely see how these two movies are interchangeable, considering the theme of both movies, as well as didn't the director do both of them?
Yes,
he did.
And
both
you know
of them.
what's funny about The Green Mile? Tom Hanks stars in that film.
Yes.
I wish you would have mixed it up with Stir Crazy. I thought it was Richard Pryor, not Morgan Freeman.
Well, speaking of Morgan Freeman, Joey, what did you think of the end of Shawshank?
It's the ultimate turnaround movie. The whole movie's depressing, but it's got the super, ultra happy ending, as they would say in Wayne's World. If they'd done a Wayne's World 3, they would have probably parodied Shawshank in some way and had the Andy Dufresne ending. Andy Dufresne strolls in the courtyard really paid off. True story about someone Andy Dufresne. Someone I know is a teacher and had a student who I guess he holds his poop in until he has an accident. This is years ago. He's probably an adult now. Hopefully he's not Andy Dufresne in a prison somewhere. Well, he'd go on these strolls and empty rabbit turds all over, the area, shaking his pant legs. Andy Dufresne it. And she'd discover these and clean them up.
Joe, I don't know anybody else who could come up with that kind of analogy to this film in that way.
She's telling me about it. I'm like, he was Andy Dufresne in it. He was getting rid of the evidence. It's a great ending. It's a magical ending. Do I think he would have gotten away with it? I think he would have died of inhaling shit fumes for half a mile. Right. If it had been a pipe, that's probably as long as the one that Tim Robbins actually had to crawl through, which is probably 25, 50 feet, you would have been fine. You towel off. And by the way, isn't it disgusting that, the shit pipe just went into a creek?
Yes.
Yeah.
That. Now I realize
could have been a flooded ditch.
So I know a little bit about municipalities and sanitary sewer systems because of my day job, but I'm pretty sure that the entire sanitary line doesn't drop into a river somewhere. It would have
I bet it did back in the 40s, Matt. They didn't have any regulations.
That's where I'm kind of maybe not.
Yeah, they did a lot of dumping of crap. I mean, factories just dumped straight in the rivers back then, too. I can see that happening.
And it's a prison in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah.
It's
in the
my alma mater had a creek called Shit Creek, and because of its smell, I don't know where that came from. But long story short, I ended up in Shit Creek, and there was definitely some kind of a poo product in there.
I thought you were talking about the TV show Shit's Creek, but I was like, oh
no. Joey went to school not too far from a water treatment facility.
That's true, and I did a drunken bet. I bet you $20 you can't jump across that. The weekend before, my roommate failed it, and he was a bit athletic, and he got muddy just getting over to the other embankment, but he won. And they're telling me, you know what? They're like, screw it. Like, if you don't make it, you know what? You could keep your $20. We believe in you. And they said I just did one big like long, like they said you just did a big long step right into the middle. And then I lost my shoe, and I was waiting around in it trying to find my shoe. So there's probably some questionable drainage out there.
If there's ever a bet that we're involved in that it involves fecal matter, Joey, you will just win the $20 automatically from me. That's
no, I learned my lesson.
Money well spent.
Long time, decades ago. So I can identify with Andy Dufresne. There, we're back. We're back.
All right, cool. Jeff, what's your final thoughts on Shawshank Redemption?
Oh, well, the film itself is a 10 out of 10, or a 5 out of 5, on any rating scale without question. But as far as final thoughts go, the essence of hope or whatever, obviously, ends up taking over the film when you get into the final passage of the movie and Andy's able to escape, obviously, right? And Red gets out through the parole board as well. So, it's the hope payoff of the century at the end of the film, right? Because, I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but obviously we know what happens, right? So that's pretty much it. It's a very enjoyable, ending. Everybody kind of gets the best shit at the end. And, good for Andy. He went from almost getting raped every day to working on his boat with Red. All right.
Awesome. So anyway, my final thoughts on the film before we segue to the death clock. I gotta say, I really enjoyed this ending. I thought that this being the first time watching it, I was rather surprised at the whole ending with Andy escaping in a very Billy Ocean's 11 kind of manner. He had all this stuff planned out. I was like, that's really cool. It's a lot of thought provoking stuff. The only thing that kind of made it hard for me to realize was, or to believe, was the convenient thunderstorm happening while he's banging on the pipe that leads out to the river. I was like, yeah, that's kind of convenient that he escapes on the night of a thunderstorm. Well,
and then there's the pressurization of the pipe.
Yeah, I'd say that's a gravity.
It wouldn't have been pressured.
It wouldn't be pressurized. No, it's gravity fed. So. And then, I
had to make it grosser.
Of course,
it was about making it cool for the movie.
And then, of course, having Red narrate and Red show up at the end of the movie where he comes back into Andy's life. I thought that was really cool. It was a great way to just kind of cap off the movie, to see a true friendship that developed, 20 years in the making. I thought that was really cool. So yeah. Well, that's my thoughts. That's kind of our thoughts of the film. Let's go ahead and divvy out the last of the points and see who wins. As usual, the points really don't mean anything, but let's see who's the top dog tonight. So, Joey, because you brought up Schitt's Creek, I'm going to go ahead and give you a point for that. That gives you
exactly. He's in for cigarettes. I think we should call them cigarettes for tonight. They're not even points; they're cigarettes.
Andres, for pointing out that Joey said Schitt's Creek, I will give you a point for that. I will also give you a point for Raquel Welch's 10,000 BC poster. And then, of course, the salvation in a Bible. So that gives you a total of 8 points. And then, Tim, you did a phenomenal job breaking down the last sequence there. Giving us your total insight between the book and the movie. So I'm going to give you 2 points on that. So that brings you to 11. So our grand total tonight, Joey wins with 12 points. Tim gets second place at 11. Andres is 8. And Jeff, thank you for playing. You have a wonderful 2 points.
Oh, wow.
He seemed a little off his game.
I have over half
off his game.
Cigarettes.
Yeah.
He was too busy smoking his share of the points.
He was smoking his points, yeah.
Yeah.
Smoked both of them on camera.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So the last question of the night is the death clock. Well, is it worth 2 hours and 22 minutes to take off your death clock? Andres.
Yes. Hell yes. It's worth your death clock, folks. Go. Own the film. It's one of the best films. It will teach you how to make a good film, okay? every detail of it. All right, great music, great cinematography, great storytelling. It's one of the best films out there. All right, I mean, not my top favorite, but it's really the greatest film. Top film. It's just top notch. I love it. I don't own the film, which is sad. I should own the film because it's one of the greatest films. So, please, it's worth watching, folks. I highly recommend.
All right, Joey, is this movie worth 2 hours and 22 minutes off your death clock?
Absolutely. I think people should revisit it at least every 5 to 10 years of their life. It's a great movie. It's uplifting. It's first time you see it, you're on the edge of your seat. Like Andy's on the edge of the ledge. It's you're like, oh shit. There's a lot of bad things happening to nice people. Well, not always nice people, but there's bad shit happening left and right. And you're worried about people. It's the great performances that make you care about the prisoners. They make you care about Brooks. They make you care about Red. They make you care about Andy, of course. And it makes you hate the bad guys. So it's a classic. I would say this movie is an American classic, and I think it's it's already enduring the test of time better than Forrest Gump. You've got people saying Jenny's the villain in that movie. Wouldn't go that far, but it ages better than Forrest Gump by all means. And I think this movie really should have won Best Picture that year and several other categories. It was nominated for quite a few. It won zip at the Academy Awards. Not to say it didn't win any awards, just no Oscars. So it got snubbed for sure.
Yeah.
And I recommend everybody own it. Buy the 4K. It's brilliant. And looking at the older snippets of movies, because I will say this: the 4K's special features are all dated. They're very old. It's all from the 90s, and you're watching these probably 3/4-inch tape masters where they're doing inserts of the movie while they talk about it, and it's like, holy shit, man! It's like it's like you haven't seen it ever before if you only remember watching this on VHS or standard cable. It's a movie that's really benefits from the better the quality format you can watch it in. It's a beautiful movie about really ugly things.
Thank you, Joey. All right, Tim. What's your take? Is this worth your death clock, or should I read the book?
Oh, for a movie that was considered to be a failure at the box office, it has found its footing in, rentals and then, and purchasing at home. And yes, it is something that you should not only watch, but as both Andreas and Joey have said, you should watch it often. Not every day, but every few years you should own a copy of this movie. It should be one of, if you're only going to own some, a few actual real discs of something, this should be one of them. And take the time, go get yourself a copy of different seasons and read the short story. It's well worth it. I mean, it's just to get an idea of where this movie came from. It's a short read. It's 101 pages. And you're going to get two other Stephen King classics. This one will be called, in the book, it's Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. And then you're also going to get At Pupil, which was made into a movie as well. And you're going to get basically what becomes Stand By Me, which is The Body. That's Stephen King in the book is called The Body. It becomes Stand By Me, the movie. So all, two solid classics and one that's not bad to watch. And then there's a fourth story in there that's doesn't equal the other three, but overall it's a good book. It's a good read. So you can't go wrong with either one. You should own a copy of the movie, you should own a copy of the book, and you should hopefully revisit it on occasion. It's just it has dark undertones, but overall has a great message and can be inspiring above the darkness that is portrayed in it. So it's well worth your death clock. Matt, how about you? First time viewer, first time watching it, what's your feel?
I'm going to agree with you guys 100%. Yes, this is definitely worth your death clock. I watched it Saturday night for the podcast, and I'm looking forward to watching it again because it is a story that is about hope. It's a story about the human condition. It's like up there with like watching like a war film, where you see people having to survive together in close quarters. It's a really good film. I definitely recommend it. It is worth taking the 2 hours and 22 minutes off your death clock. And hey, it's got some of the best, Morgan Freeman lines in cinema history, and it introduced us to Morgan Freeman's narrations. So there you go. All right, gentlemen, that brings us to mail call. Again, tonight, listener, we don't have any mail. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking. What do you think of our podcast? What do you think of our reviews? Do you have counterpoints to what we say? Do you think that Shawshank Redemption is worth your death clock or not worth your death clock? Let us know. Write in. Check us out at manreviewpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. All you have to do is just email us. And hey, you just might get something special if you email in. Anyway, gentlemen.
Like a pack of cigarettes.
What are you watching? Joey, start us off. What are you watching instead of Shawshank Redemption?
Well, I've been watching Unlocked on Netflix, which is about prisoners in jail, not prison, who they're restricted to 23 hours in and 1 hour out. And they decide that they're going to go back to more of like an open setting, and the prisoners get more responsibilities. They have to behave, or they'll take away some privileges that they've given them, and they also reward them with additional privileges. And it's basically a shit show, and you learn that everybody in prison's stupid, and they behave like children. So it's kind of amazing, like all the privileges that they get. And here we see Shawshank Redemption is a look back in the history, a historical look at how prisons used to be, and it's not the same. So that was depressing and not really uplifting like this movie. What else did I watch? Demi Moore in The Substance. If you get a trial for Mubi, yes, it's called Mubi, M as in Mary, UBI. You can get a free 7-day trial. You can watch The Substance with Debbie Moore. Holy shit. It's the most original horror film I've seen in a long time. People are going to describe her performance as brave. And I'm not going to tell you anything else about the movie. I don't recommend watching any trailers. Watch The Substance, go in cold, and just, enjoy the fucking ride.
Nice. All right, Andreas, how about you? What are you watching?
Well, besides Shawshank, just pretty much the same. We currently wrapped up Africa, so tomorrow we're gonna wrap up our Africa panel recap review over the MC Billy Edge. Next week the Penguin's gonna ramp up as well, so I'm still watching that. Daryl Dixon just wrapped up last week, so that's done. And of course, I'm watching Superman and Lois season 4, which is so far great. It's really awesome. I'm very sad it's gonna end very soon in December. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Thank you everyone for thank you guys for inviting me again for this movie. It's been a blast.
Great, awesome. Just to kind of pick your brain real quick, what's your final opinion on Agatha? Is it worth watching on Disney Plus?
Yes, actually. If you like WandaVision, it's not similar to WandaVision, but if you like the team that did WandaVision, it gives you the same thing in WandaVision. Great character development. They really did the care and the thoughtfulness that you really loved about WandaVision. That's the thing I had to say. This is the best Disney Plus show in a while, actually, and it's worth watching it. They really stick the landing in the finale, which I was surprised. Better than WandaVision.
I agree. The WandaVision suffered from that tacked on Captain Marvel subplot.
Yeah.
It just kind of it was shoehorned in there. This was its own thing, and
yeah,
I'll say it's not for everybody, and it's not a superhero show at all.
Yeah,
it's a spooky, fun Halloween thing. So if you like Hocus Pocus and you like Marvel movies, you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a supervillain show. Not in the vein as the Penguin, but like it's taking this character we knew from WandaVision and expanded upon her life and her background a little bit more, and also expanding the supernatural Marvel universe a bit more.
Spooky witches.
Yep. Yeah, so did we just.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. All right, Tim, what are you watching?
I finally finished the Santa Clarita Diet. Enjoyed that thoroughly. Was very disappointed that they didn't have a fourth season, but they wrap it up enough that I don't feel like I was completely cheated. But it's a shame. They should have made more seasons of it. It was a great show. And then I started Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. Which,
all right.
you know what? 75-year-old Stallone brings it. I'm telling you, I feel like I'm back in an 80s, film again, although it's more lines than I've ever heard that guy say, and probably all those films combined. But man, the writing's tight. It's a great show. A lot of action. He, for as old as he is very believable in the role. And he even admits in the show that he's that old, but I mean, that dude's in better shape now than I've ever been in my entire life. So, it's just, it's a good show. Let's put it this way. I binged the entire first season in 2 days. It was so good. I can't wait to get to the second season here. I really enjoyed it. And you can catch that on Paramount Plus, if anybody's interested.
Awesome. Well, I too am tapping into something relatively recent, and that is Ghosts have come back from Peacock. It's on season 4 now, I want to say. But yeah, the first 3 episodes are out.
Patience.
Exactly. Yes. I watched the first 2 episodes. I still have to watch the third one. But yeah, they introduced a new ghost. She's a Puritan who has a weird tick, as Tim had said, where she says her name. It is really fun. A really great series, and I'm curious to see where it goes from here.
Well, all right. I guess with that, I want to thank our guests, Andreas and Jeff S., for joining us tonight. And let's let them tell our listeners where they can hear more from them. So, Jeff, take it away.
At the MCU's Bleeding Edge YouTube channel and podcast on Monday nights, Wednesday nights, and Friday nights every week.
All right, Andreas, why don't you tell us where we can hear your stuff?
Yes. Usually you can see me on the movie reviews and the TV/Monday reports over the MCU Bleeding Edge on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays sometimes. You also can check out my channel, Andreas Pop Culture Channel Presents. Right now, November, I'm doing somewhat a Bond theme right now. So I just recently posted my Goldfinger 60th anniversary yesterday for his 60th anniversary this year. Just posted a trailer for Goldfinger as well today. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the film for my Pop Culture Recap live stream around 1:10 p.m. In the noon. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And so just suspect that my next 2 live stream movie reviews were going to be Casino Royale, Half Baked, with my 3 amigos, Cyber and Jeff. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now for November. So a lot more exciting content for November, folks.
Awesome. Fantastic. Look forward to hearing that. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Andreas. We always love having you with us, and we'll look forward to having you back again.
Yep.
And we'd like to thank everybody for listening to Middle Age Movie Reviews podcast. And we hope you've enjoyed our review of Shawshank Redemption. We all hope you will not only watch the movie over and over, own the movie, and possibly read the book.
Please like and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podchaser. We have a goal of 50 subscribers by 2025, so please give us a hand and click on the subscribe button and get the word out about our show. If you would like to continue the conversation about movies, check out our Facebook group at Middle Age Movie Reviews Group for interesting insights, questions, and movie-related posts. If you need to use the regular gravity toilet out in the woods, make sure to wipe with tree leaves and not poison ivy. Does anyone really read the script? Does anyone pay attention to what I'm saying? We're also part of the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Man, that's a mouthful.
Good night, everybody. Let me leave you with this. Andy Dufresne walked off with $370,000. Anybody want to give me a guess on how much that money that would be today?
I'm going to say about $4.5 million.
It's actually easy math. It's $3.7 million. Now, here's my second question. How many of you would watch a movie taking place in the 1980s, starring a 66-year-old Tim Robbins, and an 87-year-old Morgan Freeman. Andy Dufresne and Red having adventures in Mexico.
On the high seas.
Yes. Drug cartels, Mexican prisons.
It's going to be like a mashup of Shawshank Redemption and Miami Vice.
Shawshank Vice.
I'm in.
I'm in. Yeah.
All right. We got like 2 years to make it. Morgan Freeman's going to drop dead any day now.